Hi, and welcome back. We've covered a good body of knowledge in this Solutions Architect Associate learning path. We learnt how elasticity and scalability help us design cloud services, and how AWS provides the ability to scale up and down to meet demand, rather than having to provision systems on estimated usage, and how that ability increases our agility and reduces our cost, as we only pay for what we use. We saw how the 4 pillars of the AWS well-architected framework can be a guide for designing with best practices. And security, we design to protect information, systems and assets while delivering business value through risk assessments and mitigation strategies. In reliability, we aim to deliver systems that can recover from infrastructure or service failures and that can dynamically acquire computing resources to meet demand. In performance efficiency, AWS enables us to use computing resources efficiently to meet system requirements and to maintain that efficiency as demand changes and evolves. So we need to be always looking for better ways to use services together and to look for ways to break monolithic stacks down to smaller, less dependent services. And then cost optimization. Our goal is to create the best possible outcome for our end customer. We need to avoid or eliminate unneeded cost or suboptimal resources. Now that may mean using smaller, more loosely coupled services rather than going straight for biggest and best available. We need to always be looking for ways to reduce single points of failure and to reduce costs. AWS has a global footprint, but we may not need to use the biggest instances in multiple regions, and it may be that by using multiple availability zones within one region, and by using a blend of on-demand and reserved instances, we can create a highly available, cost-efficient solution. We use that design and cost optimization in our deployment for Acme widgets. We're running instances behind an elastic load balancer and 3 AZs connected with an Aurora database that replicates our data across 3 availability zones with automated failover, could scale and meet burst activity requirements while remaining a highly available, cost-efficient solution. So in exam questions, look for clues to help you determine the business requirements and constraints in any of the scenarios you get. Look for the recovery time objective and the recovery point objective. The recovery time objective is the maximum amount of time the customer can be without this system in the event of a disaster. The recovery point objective is the last possible point in time that the business data must be recoverable to. Now remember that the recovery point objective is generally a time value as well. There are 4 design patterns we can deploy in AWS to meet RPO and RTO objectives. The first is backup and restore, which is like using AWS as a virtual tape library. It's generally going to have a relatively high recovery time objective, since we're going to have to bring back archives to restore first, which could take 4 to 8 hours or longer. We're going to have a generally high recovery point objective as well, simply because our point in time will be at a last backup. And if, for example, we're using daily backups only, then it could be 24 hours. Cost-wise, backup and restore is very low and easy to implement. The second option is Pilot Lite, and that's where we have our minimal version of our environment running on AWS, which can be lit up and expanded to production size from the Pilot Lite. Our recovery time objective is likely to be lower than backup and restore, as we have some services installed already, and our recovery point objective will be since our last data snapshot. And the third option is Warm Standby, where we have a scaled down version of a fully functional environment always running in AWS. Now that's going to give us a lower recovery time objective than perhaps Pilot Lite, as some services are always running, and it's likely that our recovery point objective will be lower as well, since it will be since our last data write if we're using asynchronous databases with a master-slave multi-AZ database service. The cost of running Warm Standby is negligibly higher than the Pilot Lite or backup and restores. The benefit of Warm Standby is that we can use the environment for dev test or for skunkworks to offset the cost. And the fourth option is multi-site, where we have a fully operational version of our environment running in AWS or in another region. And that's likely to give us our lowest RTO simply because it could be a matter of seconds if we're using active-active failover through Route 53. Our recovery point objective, likewise, will be significantly lower than other options. If we're using synchronous databases, then yes, it'll be a matter of seconds. If it's still using asynchronous databases, then we're going to be an RPO of the last data write. So the cost and maintenance overhead of running a multi-site environment needs to be factored in and considered. The benefit is that you have a regular environment for testing DR processes. Just a couple of last points on exam preparation. First of all, I think it's well worth doing or setting a goal of doing 500 minimum quiz questions. If you can, do 1,000. Quiz questions are a really good way of sharpening up your subject matter expertise and ensuring that you remember all those key facts. Also, well worth doing all the labs. It's tempting to skip over them, I'm sure, but remember, it's the hands-on freshness when you are presented with a scenario, and the scenarios will make you think, and you'll be scratching your head trying to remember certain things. They're going to test your knowledge. So the more that you can have come back as active recall, the more time you have to solve some of the more challenging questions. Now, do manage your time in the exam. If you come across a really hard question, mark it and move on. So you're probably better off going through and getting as many of the simple answers as that you can get, and then coming back and with the time left, try to problem solve those ones that you don't quite get. Do check out the Cloud Academy ebooks. They're a good guide for helping with your prep. And when you pass, come back and let us know. Just email us at support@cloudacademy.com. We'd love to hear your comments and your feedback. And look, good luck, okay? You can do it. You can nail this exam. So go knock it over. Good luck.